Hi loves, this is a brief tutorial on how to use your MyFitnessPal food tracking app. If you download the MyFitnessPal app through the App Store for Google or Apple, you're just typing MyFitnessPal in to search it and download. And then once you do, you create a profile, username, and password. And the first thing you're going to want to do is go to the More section here, the bottom right-hand corner, and you want to go to Goals, and then calorie and macronutrient goals. You want to go in here and plug in the goals that I had given you in your custom macro email. It would have been in your nutrition plan email. And you want to click into here, and then you can opt for the percentages or you can opt in for grams. And I know that I have the paid version, so I'm able to actually enter in the specific macro goals that I have. If you don't have the premium version, that's perfectly fine. You can get as close to the goals as I sent you just by kind of scrolling through here. And then send me a screenshot so that I can approve those goals, just to make sure that you're eating to the right macro goals every day. Or you can upgrade to the premium. It unlocks a ton of really cool features, but is not necessary at all. If you want to just maintain the free version, it's going to work just as well. So the first thing you want to do is plug in your macro goals, and that's going to save. And then let's back up a second. So a couple of things. If you're on the home page, you can kind of scroll through here and see what's going on your dashboard. But you're going to go to the diary, and this is where you're going to spend a lot of your time logging all of your foods for the day. And so I'll kind of show you here. This is my diary for today, and up top it shows you your calorie goal. We don't really pay close attention to calories. We pay close attention to macros. Macros are calories. Macros are the breakdown of calories. So calorie would be kind of the parent, and the macro would be the child, and we pay close attention to the macro numbers. It's more important looking at the breakdown in conjunction with one another versus that overall calorie number. So here you've got the different headings, and I went into the MyFitnessPal on my computer. I logged in and I changed these names because on the standard version, I think it just gives you the standard. But I did breakfast, snack 1, lunch, snack 2, dinner, and then snack 3, aka dessert. I could have labeled it dessert, but I went with snack 3. And this is my day of foods. So my suggestion when you are first starting MyFitnessPal is just to familiarize yourself with this. Kind of take a look at everything, see what it's all about, plug in some foods, plug in the foods that you're typically eating, and then soon you'll become a pro at this, where you do what I do. And I spend the morning of or the night before, I'll go in and plug in all of the foods that I feel like eating that day. And I realize that sometimes it's a matter of, well, I don't know what I feel like eating. But for the most part, I'm sure that you've had conversations with your husband or your kids as to what's for dinner. You can kind of plug that in beforehand, and then you can scan whatever would sound good for snacks and kind of pre-log your days. But that's kind of a pro tip, so I won't get too involved in that. But I'm going to show you here how you log your foods. I'm going to go to an empty day because I've kind of built a couple of days, but I'm going to go to this day right here. So let's pretend it's morning of, and I am going into MyFitnessPal and I want to start tracking some of the foods that I'm eating. So tracking, plugging, they're all words that we use interchangeably to log in your food journal. So if I go to breakfast right here, there's an add food option, and I'm going to select that. And then you're going to notice here that there's a bunch of little tabs. And the tab here for recent shows all of the foods that I've eaten recently. So it kind of archives it here, which is great because if you are somebody who typically eats the same foods over and over, you can just quickly scroll through this list and select the food item instead of typing it in and having to search for it. It also remembers the quantity that you typically eat, which is so helpful because if you're somebody who typically always eats 2 eggs, it's going to remember 2 eggs for you. It's just a kind of easy next step. Frequent over here shows the foods that you eat frequently, similar to recent. My foods, meals, and recipes are foods, recipes, and types that you've kind of created because they're ingredients that you've made into a meal. Let's say it's chili or it's a pasta, and it's ingredients that you've logged as one recipe. And as long as that recipe doesn't change, you can archive that here so that when you go to make the chili, you're merely just clicking into recipes and selecting whatever recipe you've created. So like this, flat out spinach and chicken Alfredo pizza. I entered all of the ingredients. I labeled and titled it that flat out spinach and chicken Alfredo pizza title. I've included the serving size, and all I have to do is just log this, and it's gonna log one entire pizza because that's typically what I will eat, and it makes it really easy peasy. But that again is also a pro tip, so we won't go too much farther into that, but just to show you. So adding food, you want to go to the top and you want to click into this search for food bar. Now, what you're doing here is you're logging each individual ingredient that you're going to be eating. And at first this is going to seem tedious. Oh my goodness, if I'm eating an omelet and it has 7 ingredients, I have to log all of those. Yes, that can be tedious initially, but remember MyFitnessPal remembers the ingredients associated with the meal that you typically eat. So if I'm eating an omelet and it has bell peppers and potatoes, if I went in tomorrow and typed in bell pepper here, it would actually pull up some items down here and recommend the potato, the eggs, the cheese, and I could just quickly log all of those. So it kind of gets easier as you go. It's a very smart app. It remembers a lot of the different foods that you log, and it works with you intuitively. So let me give you an example. So for breakfast, if I wanted to type in just a regular egg, I'm gonna hit egg, and then at the bottom of the screen, I'm gonna hit search, because what it's doing here is when I type in egg, it's pulling in here keywords that are affiliated to the recent foods that I've eaten, but none of these are what I'm looking for, let's pretend. So I'm gonna hit search, and you actually wouldn't have anything that would pull in recent if you just downloaded the app because you haven't recently logged anything. So here we are where these are all of the egg items that have been logged into the MyFitnessPal database. And what you need to understand is that anybody has the ability to log a food in MyFitnessPal. MyFitnessPal is reliant on people logging foods and the nutritional information so that their database can grow really big. So you have to be careful in making sure that the food item that you're selecting is accurate in its nutrition. And that's going to be hard because how would I know, if I don't know nutrition or food that much, what the accurate amount is? So we rely on these check marks. Check marks means it's been verified. So you can select one of these items as long as it has a check mark. That means that it's good to go and the nutritional information is most likely accurate. If it doesn't have a check mark, because there are several foods that you'll find that don't have check marks, what you can do is you can kind of just click, because the first 4 or 5 are the most popular selected items. So it's safe to assume that if it's kind of up here, it's the most popular because it's the most accurate. So I would suggest you could kind of click in and see one large egg, and you could see here has 6 grams of protein and it has 4 grams of fat. If I were to back out and go to a different egg, and this one says 7 grams of protein, 5 grams of fat. Okay, that's similar to the first one. If I went down here, 6 and 5. So this is now the second time that I've seen these macros for an egg, which would maybe just confirm that this nutritional information is correct because I've seen it more than once. So I select it, and you can see here, eggs. It tells you the manufacturer, Dillon's Eggs is the name here, 1 egg. And then it shows you the macros right here. 1 whole egg has 0 carbs, 5 fat, and 6 protein. It also lists the serving size, so 1 egg, and you could click into that and change the serving. It's got a whole container here if I were to eat a whole container, but I'm just gonna leave it at 1 egg. And then number of servings is where you can adjust how much of this food ingredient you're eating, and that's also then gonna adjust these macronutrients. These macronutrients are for 1 egg. So if I went here to the number of servings, I can toggle between a fraction and saying I ate half of the egg, or I can do decimals, and this is what I prefer. So 0.5, or let me back, 0.5. Now you can see it halves the macros, 2.5 fat now, and it's 3 protein. So I'm gonna hit the check mark to say that I've only eaten half of a whole egg, and then I hit this check mark and it logs that item into that particular section. Now if I wanted to add another ingredient, I would do the same thing. So add food, search for food, and then I would type Sara Lee bread, and then I eat it all the time, so it's pulling up over here, but for the sake of this demo, I would hit search, and it's going to show me here all of the Sara Lee breads. Now, Sara Lee bread is in a package, and it has a barcode, so I could hit this up here, hit that barcode, and it's going to turn on the camera, and I can then scan the barcode on the packaging, make sure that it's correct, because remember, this is all user loaded, so you want to make sure that what is on that nutrition label matches what pulls up in MyFitnessPal. But that's really convenient because you can just scan the barcode and it'll pull up, and then the same process, it pulls up the screen, you say this is correct, I'm having 1 slice, number of servings 1. I can change this and say 1.5, I'm having 1.5 slices. You can see it adjusts the macros accordingly. I say yes here, I hit the check mark, and now it's logged 1.5 pieces of bread that I can go and toast if I want, add an egg to it, half an egg. And that's what I'm doing. I'm going to each section where I'm eating the appropriate food, and I'm clicking add food, and whether I'm searching the database for that item or manually, or I'm scanning it here, I'm able to find and log my foods in the appropriate quantity, which is going to log the appropriate macro. And the way that you can look at it is you could almost say that these up top right here are your macro bank. And as you're entering in foods, it's withdrawing from your bank. So what you can do to kind of figure out how many macros this is spending, so to speak, you can turn and tilt your phone, and you can see here, now you've got a really high-level overview breakdown of your macros per the specific ingredient. So you can see here that that 1.5 slices of bread is 20 carbs, 1 fat, and 3 protein. You can see it's 105 calories. We don't really pay close attention here. We pay close attention here. But in the screen, you can then see what your goals are, and you can see what you have remaining. And what's really cool is if you are pre-logging your foods, so you're coming here the morning of and you're saying, okay, I want to hit this macro goal. Let me scan, let me plug in a bunch of different foods. Let me change the quantities. Let me change this to maybe 1 slice. That'll lower this carb amount, and then I'm closer to hitting my goal. So the idea is to fiddle with this beforehand, make it all work, and get this to say within a 5 range of each, and then you've built your own food plan and you're eating to it. But again, that's a pro step. It comes with taking a little bit of time to kind of learn about macros, become familiar with plugging in all of your foods. But the idea here is that you're paying close attention and looking at your foods throughout the day to go, okay, this egg right here is 2 grams of fat and 3 protein. How could I get more protein? I might want to do 1.5 eggs. That's going to then increase my fats. So you want to fiddle with quantities and play around and pay attention to your carbs, your fat, your protein. It does show you some micronutrient goals here, your sodium and your sugar. And if you do log in online, you can see goals like fiber and other types. But just paying close attention to these numbers is what's important, and getting as close to these goals right here as possible. So I hope that this helps. If you have any questions, you know to email me, leahkin@lkfit.com. And goodbye.